Welcome to our Gegenüber talks presented by the Goethe-Institut North America. Gegenüber is our digital transatlantic magazine, and today's event is part of our series Literature Across Borders. We're excited to hear from two emerging literary voices from Germany who are currently traveling along the East Coast to present their work and engage in conversations about their texts and German-American relations. I'm delighted to welcome Sonali, Iven, and our moderator, Katea. Let me briefly introduce them. Sonali Beher is from Gießen in the German state of Hesse and studied English and political science in Heidelberg and Seattle. She is currently pursuing literary writing at the German Institute for Literature in Leipzig. Her work explores the intersection of the personal and political, with themes like German identity, womanhood, and labor. Her short play Mensch mit Kopf was staged in Vienna in 2024. Iven Yorick Fenker grew up in Germany's Harz region and writes about masculinity, fascism, soccer, and love. He studies at the German Institute for Literature in Leipzig as well, and works as a writer, filmmaker, and journalist, contributing to the weekly newspaper Die Zeit. His film Die Kastanie won the Youth Jury Prize at the Vienna Shorts 2025. Our talk will be moderated by Katea Stitt, the program director at WPFW in Washington, D.C. A Georgetown alumna, she began producing performing arts in 1987 and founded Anyanwu Management in 1994. Since 1991, she has hosted Beyond Borders, a weekly jazz world music show on WPFW. I'm pleased to pass the conversation along to our moderator, Katea. Enjoy this literary exchange and feel free to engage and reflect.
Thank you so much, Annette, for the gracious introduction, the kind introduction. I'm pleased to be here with you all. And we have people from everywhere. Bogota, I saw there. It's pretty amazing, you know, how people can come together. And we should come together over art and literature. And we have these two dynamic voices. And what I'd like to ask them to do is to start by each reading a piece, if we could begin there. And maybe we start with Ivan and then move to Sonali. Is it okay with the two of you?
Sure.
Very good.
I'm gonna read part of a short story, which was translated, like originally I wrote it in German, and it's also about the Harz region where I'm from, and it's translated by Jennifer Jensen. I met the Nazi of my youth again. He stands behind the bar and pours me a beer. I used to collect beatings from him. Now he wants 4.20 from me. While the drink runs ice cold down my throat, I think about the gut punches from back then, about the bile rising up from my stomach. It seems now as though it had never happened. But I remember the taste of blood and fear in my mouth. I remember how it felt to keep running, ignoring the burning in my lungs. Another beer, please, I say and look down at the bar. With my fingers, I trace the scars in the wood. He takes my glass out of my hands. I flinch, possibly just internally, but my shoulders are tight, my neck is stiff, and the vein in my neck is throbbing. He slams the glass in front of me. He hasn't washed it. I lay a bill down, watching as he gives me my change in coins, and the foam collapses in on itself. You have to talk to each other in the country, somebody's father once told me. He had stood right next to me and reminded me why I told my mother that it would be a stupid idea to go to the village fire department festival. I don't beat your father just because he's with the Green Party, he says and then laughs. For Habeck, though, I wouldn't hit the brakes if he were to cross the street in front of me. He wouldn't come out here, I say. Exactly, he says. Did you watch Braunschweig versus Hanover, the Nazi asked me, and I shake my head. He looks at me and I look in my glass. Then he serves another customer. They took a beating, he says, as he pours a beer from the tap and laughs. He sets the glass full of foam to the side and stabs the head with a kitchen knife. The match was called after the final whistle, without the referee, he says, and the man sitting at the counter agrees with him. Another round? Man, he asks. And you? The men start pounding the wooden counter and sing. Zwischen Harz und Heideland. Hey, what? Are you blind? Open your eyes before you cross the street. An old man in a sports car screams at me. The top is down, the old town teeming with activity. Didn't you pay attention in school? He screams. It's the busy season. The man's head is ruddy, the traffic is stopped up behind him, the asphalt absorbing the heat. He's not coming out to clean my clock because his seat is too low to the ground, he boastfully announces. I offer to help him up. He tells me that he'll run me over next time I try to take his right-of way. Only as he drives off do I realize that the driver is my old school teacher. Honking horns reverberate in the narrow street. His motor howls as he drives away. He turns around one last time and flips me off. He who won't hear must feel, my soccer coach, who is also my uncle, tells me. We sit in front of the ice cream stand. My legs hurt. He and my father discuss politics. My brother and I are kids and are eating after 8 ice cream sundaes. Something's got to give in, Germany, my uncle says. My father doesn't respond. My brother and I crack through the chocolate shells with our plastic spoons. Then we sit in silence and gaze at the main street where the motorcycles drive past us through into the Harz Mountains. It feels like an eternity before we start talking about soccer again. When I was still in school, but already playing on the men's team, we came to the same bar after practice. It smells exactly as it did back then. I had been trying to quit drinking for the first time and had just ordered an alcohol-free beer when he grabbed me in a headlock. I remember the scent of sweat and Axe dark temptation and the feeling of losing consciousness. You have to learn how to be a man, our captain says, as he holds an ice cube to my temples. I've just opened my eyes again. American pop songs are playing in the background. The bar belongs to his father, which is why he can do whatever he wants here. Besides that, he is our team captain, or Spielführer, with emphasis on Führer. No one taught you that, man? He asked. Do what I tell you to do, and stop crying, he bellows in my ear. Then he kisses me on the forehead and gives me a slap on the cheek. On the way to the bathroom, he punches our coach. Tell your brother he's a pussy. Dad, turn our music on. It starts to get light outside. I decided to go for it and jump. The fall from the bridge is short. The collision are harder than I thought. The water in the dam is ice cold and my lungs collapse. But I'm a certified skull and crossbone swimmer, an expert. I don't drown. Waiting on the bank are the boys, the men, my friends. Thank you. Until that point.
Thank you very much, Iven. That's a wonderful piece, and we'll discuss it a little bit later. We're going to move to Sonali now and hear from her. And what was the title of the piece? I should have asked you that first.
The story is called What Must Have Been Said, und in German, was gesagt werden musste.
Thank you. And Sonali, what will you offer for us now?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to read an excerpt of the novel I'm currently working on, which is called Novel German Happiness. And I'm just going to start. Once upon a time, there was a Jew and a woman with a migrant background. Her specific background is not important. What's important is that everyone who meets her knows that she has a migrant background, and everyone who meets him suspects that he's Jewish. And what is important also is that the first thing both of them think of when they look in the mirror in the morning is, I am a Jew, or I am a woman with a migrant background. She has black hair and dark brown eyes and is called Aisha or Fatma or Shirin. He has black hair and light brown eyes and is called David or Moshe or Isaac. She works at a kebab stand or as a dental hygienist or writes books about other women with migrant backgrounds. Her father owns a convenience store or a produce store. Her mum is a homemaker, and maybe she cleans the doctor's office at night. The woman with a migrant background went to college, or she didn't, but if she did, she's the first in her family to do so. He, the Jew, is a great-grandson of Holocaust survivors, or maybe he's not. His great-grandfather was in Auschwitz or Dachau, or he lived his entire life in New York. Here, too, the details are unimportant. What's important is simply this, that when others see him, they don't just think he's a Jew, but also his great-grandfather must have been in the Holocaust. They met each other at her father's produce store. They reached for the chickpeas at the same time. Or at one of her book readings about women with migrant backgrounds, he was a publisher and sat in the first row. Or at the dentist's office where she worked. That day, he lost his wisdom teeth and won over her smile. The Jew isn't the first man she's dated. She met her first boyfriend during the first year of her internship or her first semester at college. He was called Simon Hamburger and was from Munich. He had sky blue eyes and dirty blonde hair. Her older brother, Mohammed, Jan or Ali, jokingly called him her little Hitler Youth. A year after their wedding, she and the Jew are pregnant. She wants to call the baby Aishagul or Fatima or Shaya. He wants Daniel, Moses or Ishmael. They cook shakshuka at night and tease each other. She says their daughter will wear a headscarf and eat halal. He says their son will wear a yarmulke and eat kosher. She rolls her eyes and throws a dish towel at him. He wraps his arm around her and kisses her on the neck, laughing. They agree on a double name. 6 months after the birth, it rains the whole day. On her way home, the woman with a migrant background thinks back when she was reading eyewitness accounts from former Ukraine in a college seminar. She thinks about how students in former Kiev developed a weather app that issued a warning when the military marched through the streets and soldiers invaded the city. When that happened, the app would display small symbols for raindrops and thunderstorms. Under that would be the message, "It's raining on Shevchenko Street." The woman with a migrant background flees through the apartment entrance, closes her umbrella, runs up the stairs and sees 2 police officers standing in front of her door. She thinks, it's raining in my house. They ask, are you Aisha or Fatma or Shirin? She says yes, or yes, or yes. They ask if they can come in. She asks why. They say a routine check. They say don't be afraid. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you. I want to go back to you. I feel that there's this thread between both of the writings, if you will, where there is this toggle between warmth and love and familiarity. And on the other side, there is brutality. And I say fascism, I mean, you use the word fascism, but even in Sonali's reading, there is this through line of also fascism. If both of you could speak to how those pieces, how you interpret these pieces now, given the context, both what we have in Germany and during your travels here in the United States. Is that a fair question for you all? I hope it's not too much, but.
No.
So Sonali, do you want to start and then I'll come back to you, Ivan?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a very like sort of acute observation that I thought about too when writing. I think the story is born out of the current climate, and also it's interesting because last night we had a reading at Interloop, and I was talking to some of the audience members later on, and we were talking about how like before I came to the US, everyone was saying, please take care of yourself before, like when you go there. And from like the media you get, you sort of feel like the country's in chaos. And sort of it's the headlines which are, also like similar headlines in Germany, is sort of how we tilt towards fascism. And that is definitely true. And I think that also makes this travel and this journey so special. And yet what I also find so interesting is how like daily life still has to go on. And I think that's also, in my text, I also refer to Kiev and to Ukraine. And what I also find so interesting is, that also Ukrainian life still goes on. Like people still go to the bars, people still, have to, because that's ingrained to us as humans. It's one thing to have like these big political changes that definitely affect us on a day-to-day as well. But what also fills our life is hanging out with friends and drinking wine and falling in love. And it is that thing that is so important, and why like political changes are also so important, because they affect this life. And I think this parallel sort of happening of big political changes and also the day-to-day is a thing that I find so interesting. And it's definitely is like a thing that, or an idea that sort of inspired this piece.
Yeah, the kind of constant cognitive dissonance that we all really live in all the time, especially these times. Thank you. And Ivan?
Yeah, I think that I came with a similar, I think, idea to write this story, because what I wanted to focus on also was to kind of like tell these nuances between growing up in, actually, like my story is taking place in the early 2000s in Germany, in the Harz Mountains, small cities, and the way of especially growing up then as a man, or being like socialized as a man, and like learning and being told what that means or should mean, and also at that time especially facing like it felt, I think, like the last remaining cultural things in like organized neo-Nazi groups, who were at that time dressing like out of, still like using the like fashion codes from the 90s. So it was a kind of like outdated still, but it felt so like the violence felt very very much closely to like the youngsters. Like it didn't have a political outcome, like a real political force. And I think this is like what really has changed now, that not also in Germany, the political violence, especially from the far right or right-wing extremists, is getting more present, and there are more cases, and they are gaining real political power and influence. I think this is what mainly changed, and sort of like reading my story from the early 2000s now kind of like feels like, and because also like I tried to create like this feeling of being young and this yeah, I don't know, it's not that you were naive or something, but just at the countryside you hadn't had so many people to talk to or something, you know, and it was kind of like easier in a way to meet a neo-Nazi, or at least like a violent yeah, young boys, men, whatever, um, and to yeah, to being like forced to deal with them at parties, or at like events. Everyone went, and yeah, you know, you knew who not to talk to, like, and who not to look at, actually. And I think like this kind of like tenseness grew, and it grew out of certain peer groups, out of in like daily life and real political power, I think. And I think that is what I also discovered from being back in the United States, because I've been to New York last year, also in September, so really one year ago. And I know, like, for me, it's the first time to be outside of New York, and New York is special and maybe different to the other parts of this country. But also in New York, I had the feeling like right when we landed, and then like discovered the city, walked around, I felt the tenseness.
Thank you for that. And you have been to the United States before, both of you, actually, with different experiences. If you could just elaborate a bit on, and maybe I go back to Sonali, although you started down that road, Ivan, but I go back to Sonali for a minute. Talk to us about how the trip has been so far, but also how the United States in that year's period has changed in your opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, I was here 8 years ago, so 2017, during the first presidency. I actually remember when because I studied at the University of Washington for a year, and I remember that a couple of months before I went, I watched the election results on my like small, antiquated, my mum's television that I brought to my student room. And I saw like the election result, and as soon as it was clear that Trump won, I got like the first messages from friends saying, you know, well, good luck and have fun with that. I think it was definitely the situation was definitely tense when I was there, and there were definitely, especially with campus politics, young people that were already divided. But now I feel, I mean, I've only been here for 1.5 weeks, but and Seattle is a very liberal, sort of like a blue dot in a sort of Red Sea. But I feel like the sort of potential for aggression has definitely grown. It was, Iven and I, we talk about this a lot, that I feel like the first thing that you always notice as a German when you come to the US is how everyone's so warm and everyone's so welcoming, and is like you can just like stare, like question, you have a question in your mind, and you stare somewhere and someone will come up to you and go, you know, do you need help with anything? And that's so different. And yet on the other hand, I feel like this very deep potential for friendliness and warmth can also sort of go the other way around. And we definitely had some situations where I, outside of New York, you know, also in smaller towns, where I definitely felt that, you know, me as a woman of color, this situation right here is different than maybe for Iven, and I'm being like treated differently. I'm either not being like looked at and like just totally ignored, or we had some run-ins with like MAGA people that I felt were like the sort of the point of escalation is reached much more quickly than I would have thought, you know, by a wrong look sort of that I felt like we were talking to a woman in a restaurant who was like chanting USA and had her MAGA hat on and was visiting some friends, I think, and I felt like giving her a wrong look already, like sort of incited. She was like, you know, is everything okay? Like, why are you looking at me and stuff like that? And I was like, this willingness to sort of escalate is there. And I think that is different from 8 years ago. I'd be also, you know, interested in what you're saying, Katea, because obviously you know more about it. But like, I feel like 8 years ago there was a tenseness, and now it is sort of, it's developed into like a readiness to sort of act, and like and I can definitely see that trend in Germany as well. Like that in Germany there definitely I've situations where, I mean, you know, even, you know, the beginning of the 2000s where even stories takes place, you know, there were tenseness there too. There was violence there too against people with a migration background, against people of color. And now that it's sort of also politically endorsed and structurally endorsed, I feel like the sort of the point where it like sort of like flips, and the readiness has definitely grown now.
Absolutely. And forgive me for a minute, I had an internet interruption, so you froze for a minute. I was trying to work that out and listen to you, so forgive my attention moving. But yeah, you're spot on with everything you say. It's so interesting how, you know, and we see this again and again in the world, right? How we can be so far apart geographically and yet have the very same feelings, experiences. I want to hear from Ivan, and then I have a follow-up question for both of you.
Yeah, I can, like with Sonali and I are like, I think became like a tradition. Like every morning we are like reflect from the days we had, or like we kind of like check in, and it's definitely happened a lot of times that I was being addressed first, and I think that comes because of the gender, being addressed as a male, and like to be thought of as, I don't know, somehow more, I don't know, competent or something. We had the expression somehow, which is, but it also gained another layer, I think. So this mixed feelings that Sonali experienced, that Sonali described, were like very complex moments. And also, to be honest, for me, and for like both of us, it's something different when you have these confrontations in a country where so many people have guns, and you are not used to so many people actually potentially owning a firearm. And this, I think, like mainly changes also the way, like the possibility to talk back, because, you know, when you actually like, especially for me, like being the first time not to be in New York or somewhere else, and to, yeah, kind of like having this back forth to navigate through to which point you can have an actual conflict and make your point and get out of the this conflict safe and alive. And this is also like, sure, speaking as a white person who is maybe surely not that endangered, but it's, as I described, like I had the feeling that it's getting tenser. And also, on the other hand, people are so lovely and so welcoming and so open. The communication skills, it's so heartwarming and adorable how many people we've met, how many deep and inspiring and moving conversations we had, and how helpful people are. Like, this is also America. I think that it's a very, very mixed experience, and it's kind of like, yeah, I have the feeling that just you have to kind of like understand the situation and see like which kind of like interaction you're gonna have. But it can be both. It can be like wonderful, but it can also be the complete opposite, I guess.
Yeah, and obviously the wonderful is often of your choosing, whereas the other one is really often placed upon you, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
you all are reading in a variety of spaces, including a pizzeria, I understand, and of course, bookstores and libraries. In this moment, as we talk about all of the chaos, really, that is part of the American fabric, and I might even argue to say that has always been. It's just at a different space right now, and at a different level, and so institutionalized, you know, in a different way than it's been in the past. But speaking of joy, speaking of really sustenance, when you think about literature and all that it does for us. I mean, the stories that you all read today, while they were perhaps on a certain level unique to geography, they were also very universal stories of finding love or wanting to belong, or just seeing people as they are, which we all go through. How has the reception been? What has that been like in these spaces, especially now when I think people are also very hungry, um, in an odd sort of way. I mean, hungry and curious in a way that I think people may not have been before, where they're realizing more and more in the United States that this is one world and we are all in it together. And so, how can this person in front of me, what is it that they bring to me or that they're offering me, and how can I relate to them, and how do I respond to them? Can you talk a little bit about that, how the readings have been and how people have been embracing or engaging with you all? And also,
Okay.
if I could just add, could I add one more part? I'm sorry, um, um, which is, I got sidetracked looking at the note. I'm sorry. Um, the need for the kind of literature right now that you all are offering, because I feel like there's also this definite need for literature in general, but those that share stories that are relatable, um, and that come from other parts of the world that we may not be as familiar with in the United States.
I can maybe say that I was in the many different events we had. Like, for example, we were in high schools, we were in bookshops, like more traditional reading spaces. But yesterday we were like at this pizza place, and like from the reactions or the conversations we had afterwards, I was impressed, maybe not surprised, but impressed how well informed people were about like the situation in Germany and also the inner politics, and they had a deep knowledge of what is going on, and also maybe it's maybe a bit. Oh no, I can maybe compare it to what it was to be like last year and to be in New York. I didn't have this feeling of so many people knowing that much about like even like who is now what minister or someone in Germany or Europe, and I think that this changed through these actual like conflicts we are having, the wars going on, and the trade conflicts or threats. And I think that like an optimistic way to say to look at it is maybe that like this the like the global political situation forces people to be more informed, to be able to talk to each other, and I think that this is something that really happened. We had so many conversations about politics actually, but and what it inflects our writing actually, because like also we are talking to other, for like especially yesterday we were talking to other writers too, and it was very interesting to get. I got the impression that it has become harder not to be political, and also like in this political climate, like poetry becomes political, everything becomes political, and also sure I agree that there is a power and a magic within art, and especially text, like reading text, because it can build a connection which is very much needed, I think, and stories are very much needed because like only by narratives you can change something, and yeah, it's important to get some narratives out there which are not like for example the Fox News channel I watch out of interest in my hotel room, and cannot believe how like what their narratives are.
Yeah. Not sanitized, not manufactured, but you all are talking about actually offering people real narratives that aren't always neat and pretty, but they're wholly necessary. You know, that's the thing. And Sonali, thank you for that answer, Ivan. And Sonali?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think also, the good thing about Crisis is that it sort of binds people together, or brings people together and makes it sort of like huddle together. And I also had great conversations about people, and I definitely, what you said, Katea, I recognize this hunger. I feel like people are so hungry for political fiction or political stories, and like opportunities to sort of recognize maybe their fear and their anger and their hopelessness maybe, and also but like a togetherness that art can like provide so well. And I totally agree with you, even that I think like stories are the opposite of propaganda because they allow, or they are ambiguous. Like a good story is ambiguous, and a good story sort of is like a good conversation that you have with someone you don't know, right? Like it's an encounter with, and what a fantastic medium, right? You sit down and you read something and you have to shut up and listen to someone else. and to their framing, to their story, to their characters, and in your your position or your role in that is to listen. And I think that there are so few spaces that we have nowadays where we just listen to each other, and I think stories can provide that, and I think that's why people resonate with it so much, and I also resonate with it so much because it was stories that have, you know, it's one thing to read the news, which is like very, very important, and to be sort of up to date. But stories can give you this, like, not only what is happening, but what does it mean to us as human beings. And that, I think, is like, that is like decisive to, or like the sort of the decisive factors sort of to recognize each other as human beings and to have empathy, you know. And yeah, it's been like, I feel like it's been stories that have politicized me too. And so yeah, I totally agree. I think literature is a magical thing that gives us this opportunity to engage with each other in that in a space that has become so rare. And I think that's why people resonate with it so much. And I was also like, and I use the word surprised that we had readings with people that were like, for instance, German expats with an average age like of 70. And I thought, you know, oh, because I'm, you know, I come from this like I live in Leipzig, in this like yuppie neighborhood, or like in this like everyone's young and everyone's like fair trade or whatever. And I'm like, is this my audience? Like, will they accept me? Will they like think it's because my stereotype, of course, is like they're older, so surely they have to be conservative. And then I was like, I was showered with warmth afterwards, and we had these gorgeous conversations about what it was like when they were younger in Germany, and like, again, like emotions like fear and anger and desperation. It was universal. We both felt it at different times in our lives, and yeah, it's beautiful, definitely.
Yeah, that sounds lovely, actually. With both of you, you're both beautiful writers, by the way. I have to say, I could read your work again and again. So we look forward to keeping up with both of you. You've been in New York, you've been in Pennsylvania. I'm assuming much more rural or small townish than what you experienced in New York. And you've been to Pittsburgh? Yes. So I want to hear from you all how these places figure in terms of what your the if you held a stereotype, what the stereotype might have held for you. New York, you expounded on very beautifully, but what about the smaller spaces? Was there something there that really surprised you, or something that was unexpected in you know, Pittsburgh, a very blue collar steel town, ex-steel town, and the same thing for rural Pennsylvania or smaller towns in Pennsylvania, often leaning conservative. So talk to us about your experience in these smaller places, and is there anything that was familiar to you as you travel the U.S. that takes you back to an experience in Germany at some point?
Okay, then I'll start. I think like what like we are experiencing in every city, and the smaller it gets, experiencing it more, is that because neither of us has a driver's license, and so we are very much depending on public transportations, and to walk around is actually interesting sometimes, because like sidewalks just stop or don't exist at all. So yeah, you get to experience American cities or smaller cities, or especially like countryside, without a vehicle, which is interesting. Yeah, we've been to like Westchester on the country, and it's like they don't and certain parts they don't even have sidewalks. They just have these. I mean, it's very beautiful. I can imagine like that you can walk through this landscape, but yeah. So this is something which is very present, and also we got stuck in Front Royal because we took an Uber out there, but yeah, it was hard to find someone to take us back to DC. This was funny, but yeah, also the people that like took us back the taxi, they were also lovely people. So I think like for me being in Pittsburgh, I didn't have so many stereotypes besides like the industry in the landscape, and we found that definitely. Like what it surprised me was that how, especially in the downtown area, how many shops closed down, and how like, and we were told that it had something to do with the pandemic. And it really showed like in the main parts that it really yeah, it changes the appearance of the city when I like explained it to myself that it has something to do with, you know, the government not so much supporting this, like especially small businesses. They just run out when they don't have any customers. And it in Germany, like until a certain point, they were like funding these places in Berlin, especially. Not so sure, like businesses like went down, but not so many. And it felt like partly kind of like a ghost town to me. And yeah, I don't know, I explained it to myself too with the like difference in how much the government is involved. Also in the infrastructure that, you know, when I don't know that there's this bridge, you have to pay like $6 when you want to take it each way every day, and these things like this private that the infrastructure is in just business hands. It was showing.
Yeah, definitely. The industry, I think, in Front Royal, I think it's you always have like images in your head, right? About and when you hear that like there's a very small town and there's a lot of Republican voters, a lot of Trump supporters, and then you sort of go in, also admittedly a bit voyeuristic, which is, you know, problematic as well. And you go in and you just think, oh, there's probably gonna like there's gonna be Trump supporters at every corner, and it's gonna be like it's just a conflict waiting to happen. And then everyone's super lovely and everyone's very like helpful and is super like there was this one woman with rainbow hair, and like she was like doing like these soap bubbles, which is middle of the street that was empty. And I was like, how lovely. And everyone, also the taxi drivers, who came all the way and got us from Front Royal to DC. Like no taxi driver in Berlin would ever do that. And I think that's also, I think that's because in the beginning we talked about like daily life and how like macro politics and like and the day-to-day, and I think that is also a testament to that, right? It doesn't it's so simplistic to say they vote like this and they vote like this, and so that's why they're the demons and they're the angels or whatever, and have like sort of paint them in like one light or one color, or say like and I think that like surprised me. I was also surprised at my own stereotyping in that sense. And with Pittsburgh, I actually had this very beautiful moment because Katia, you said in the beginning, I'm from Gießen, which is an a place like hardly anyone knows probably. It's a small town near Frankfurt. It's got 80,000 people, and it's regularly voted the second ugliest city in Germany. And actually I've my whole childhood I've always dreamt of like being from Frankfurt, being from a big city, and I am actually like we have this in Gießen. We have this pride of being we're proud of not being proud, or we're proud of our inferiority, sort of our ugliness, and our down to earthness. And I talked to people in Pittsburgh, and we like totally connected on that. And they were like that it's the exact same thing in Pittsburgh, and I thought that was just so beautiful how you can like have these bridges, and that's why I sort of felt really felt very at home. I felt very comfortable in Pittsburgh because it reminded me of Gießen, because it had like this very specific vibe of don't making like not talking in superlatives, not pretending like you're more than you are, and being like it's totally okay where I am, and this is a good city, you know, and it doesn't have to be the dream of everyone's, you know, the dream destination, but it's still a good city to be from, and it's a good city to live in. And yeah, that's what I really, really loved.
Well, that's always my experience. Yes, of course. I'm sorry, Annette. It was going too long.